afternoon, Mets fans, and welcome to a Friday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and it is Friday. Yes, it is. And not a whole hell of a lot is happening in baseball, so I wanted to get a video recorded before the weekend. The Super Bowl is Sunday. I don't care. I don't want the Patriots to win, but I don't care. The key thing for me about the Super Bowl is that it's the end of the NFL season, which means it is the start of MLB season. Baseball is back, and it's right around the corner. So I want to talk a little bit about one of the challenges, and something that I haven't touched on very much, but we've heard a lot of chatter about infield configurations and alignments, and a big challenge for Mickey Callaway in his sophomore season as the Mets manager. While the free agent market remains mostly stagnant at the high end, still no Harper Machado signings anywhere. Lots of rumors about teams looking at those two guys. There still are also a lot of other decent free agents available. Marwin Gonzalez, to me, is the one that surprises me the most, that he's still available. Here's a versatile player who can play all over the diamond and is a pretty damn good hitter, and he remains unsigned. I don't know, it's crazy, but he doesn't fit the Mets, and he doesn't fit the Mets for the topic that I'm going to talk about today. And it's Marwin Gonzalez is mostly an infielder, although he does play some outfield. He is mostly an infielder, and the Mets have a glut of infielders on their roster in 2019, and I want to talk about that today, and the potential challenge that that's going to pose to Mickey Callaway. One of Callaway's biggest criticisms last year was his inability to manage the roster, manage the in-game aspects, and there was some scuttlebutt about him not being great with communication with players. And I don't know if there's any truth to that, but look, the reality is that as a first-time manager, and I didn't realize it at the time, and I didn't mention it at the time, and I don't think a lot of people really did, but when the Mets brought in Gary DiSarcina to be Callaway's bench coach, they really hamstrung Mickey and didn't give him an experienced general on the bench with him. And that's changing this year with Jim Riggleman now as the bench coach for the Mets. And hopefully Riggleman's presence helps Mickey juggle the infield, as he's going to have to do this year. So right now, where the team is concerned, the infield is stacked, like I said, and that doesn't even include Peter Alonso, who is likely to make his way up to Queens shortly after the start of the season so that he can gain and retain that extra year of control for the Mets. But Alonso will be there as well. So the logjam in the infield is Todd Frazier is at third base, Jed Lowry is at third base / shortstop / second base. Todd Frazier, of course, can also play first base. Ahmed Rosario is the shortstop, and that's pretty much his fixed position. He's one of the only guys in the infield outside of Dom Smith who doesn't really play any other infield positions. There's Dominic Smith, as I just mentioned, who can, of course, play first base. The Mets played with him in the outfield a little bit last year. I don't know that that's going to stick, but you've got Dom Smith at first base, and then you have Robinson Cano at second base, who can also play first base, who might also play third base. And then, as I said, Alonso jumps up at some point, and he's inserting himself into the first base conversation. So how does Mickey Callaway juggle these guys, and who's the odd man out? And I think that's the easiest one to answer first, because for me, the odd man out is Todd Frazier. There's no question about it. Frazier had all of last year, his first season in Queens, to solidify himself as the everyday third baseman, and he had a couple of injuries. When he was on the field, he wasn't great. He had one of his worst seasons of his career. So Frazier's by no means a sure thing. Outside of the fact that he's still owed some money and he's under contract this year, he's the first casualty, in my opinion. The Mets bring in Brody brings in Jed Lowry to be in the infield, and guarantees him playing time, and he's going to more than likely be the everyday third baseman for the team, with Cano as the everyday second baseman, with Rosario as the everyday shortstop. But then the juggling act comes in. When Rosario gets his day off, and it does seem like the Mets are going to be giving Rosario a day off once a week or so, because of how well that translated to his performance on the field in the second half when he was a little bit more rested. I expect the Mets will follow suit with that this year and rest Rosario as often as they can. So that means we'll see Jed Lowry playing shortstop on those days, and that also then means that Todd Frazier will probably be playing third base on those days. Now, on the days when Alonso remains in AAA, waiting for his call-up, and assuming that Dom Smith makes the roster out on opening day, Dom Smith and Todd Frazier will juggle time at first base. Rosario will play short, Cano will play second. But you can also slot Cano over to play first base, slot Jed Lowry into second base, have Todd Frazier at third base. All of this being said, this is a good problem to have because these are pretty good players. And I didn't even mention J.D. Davis in all of this. J.D. Davis is another corner guy who can play first and third. So the interesting thing is going to be how Mickey Callaway juggles these players and how he's able to communicate with them as to what his plans are for using them. You're going to play this day on this position this day and this position that day, and you're going to rest this day. That's a very underappreciated aspect of a manager, being able to communicate with his players and keep them in the loop and have them understand why the manager's making decisions that he's making. And so I'll be interested to watch that unfold and see if Jim Riggleman can help with that. And I think he can. I think he will. Personally, like I said, Todd Frazier is the guy that goes to the bench first. No, there's no question about that. Jed Lowry is an excellent player. He must play every day. And when Brody brought him in, he told him he's going to play every day. Brody said, Jed, come to the Mets, you'll play every day. Otherwise, Jed Lowry doesn't sign with the Mets, in my opinion. So Todd Frazier's the odd man out. Cano, every day at second base. He's going to need to rest too, though. And so while Frazier is the odd man out, with Lowry being able to bounce around the infield, Frazier's going to play third when Cano sits. Lowry will play second. Again, you're gonna rest Alonso every now and then. Frazier can play first. Jed Lowry can play first. Cano can play first. So this is, again, a lot of moving pieces, and these are good moving pieces. This is one of the things that Brody did really well this offseason. He addressed, as Andy Martino has said, the B team. The B team that you'd end up seeing on a Sunday when the regulars are resting day game after a night game. You're not going to have Jack Reinheimer playing shortstop or second base or third base. No offense to Jack Reinheimer, but look, Jack Reinheimer is not an everyday major league player. All of the guys I've just mentioned, even J.D. Davis, he's an upgrade over Jack Reinheimer. There's no question about that. So I'm intrigued with this infield and with the infield alignment, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Mickey's going to put the infield together. I also didn't mention Jeff McNeil in any of this. I can't believe I didn't mention Jeff McNeil, because Jeff McNeil could play all of the same positions that Jed Lowry can play. And again, Jeff McNeil, huge upgrade over Jack Reinheimer. So, again, good problem to have. This is a good problem for the Mets to have going into the season. And the only concern I have with it is how Mickey Callaway will manage the players, each of them, how he sets expectations from them, how he clears and clarifies what everyone's roles are going to be, because that's something that major league players want to know. They want to know their defined role. What am I doing today? Is it going to be different tomorrow? Am I going to be sitting 3 times this week? I need to know. And as long as the communication's there, I suspect these guys are all professionals and they can deal with the fact that they're not going to be everyday players, if that's the case. As long as it's not a surprise, as long as they're in the loop. So, that's my infield analysis. Next week, I want to talk a little bit more about the outfield, and that'll be on Monday. And Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, I'm going to be out of town, so I will not be posting any videos Tuesday or Wednesday. Maybe back in town on Thursday and might be able to record the pitching analysis on Thursday, because that's the next thing I want to do. So outfield will be next. That'll be on Monday. And of course, if any news breaks over the weekend, I'll talk about that on Monday as well. But until then, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the Super Bowl, hope the Patriots lose, but I don't expect him to. So, till Monday, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.